Hello everybody, Gabby here, and I am here today to talk about something that's very important to me, especially as a commentator, but also as someone who you guys go to for reference on, hey, I built this team, is it good? So today we're gonna have a discussion on how to get good feedback when team building. This is a video that I've wanted to record for a while, so if you like these kind of tutorials, please go ahead and drop a comment, leave a like on the video, and now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So you may have seen something like this before posted on Reddit, for example, which is where I yoinked this screenshot from. But it's basically somebody asking for feedback. They provide a code of their team, an image with all the Pokemon, with all the moves, with all the items, all that very critical information. And then they also left a comment saying, okay, here's also, some more information. These are the EV spreads I'm using. They leave a nice tidbit of information saying they like to lead with the Indeedee and the Snorlax combination, and that they sometimes will use Tyranitar and Excadrill. But then they just kind of ask for suggestions and just leave it at that. And this is really hard to provide feedback on. It doesn't really tell me about, what they expect the team to do or, what the problems are. Maybe there's like a certain matchup or something that is going awry. So, today we're going to talk about what information they can provide in order to, give someone like me who wants to help and provide feedback on the team, that information, that help, that thing. So, before we get into Pokemon specific terms, I feel like it's really important to understand what exactly is good feedback. I feel like this is something that you don't really get to learn until you're in a job that really values feedback, unfortunately. So I borrowed these bullet points from a Harvard Business School blog post. You can see the link below. And I felt like this matched with my personal experiences. Obviously, feedback sort of changes on the person who's giving it or the person who's asking for it. But in my personal experience, I find that it's very helpful to understand the kind of feedback that you want, whether it's coaching, constructive feedback, whether it's praise, like someone just patting you on the back and being like, yeah, you built that team, good job. Or a more specific evaluation of a recent work or a project, and that's where the Pokemon analogy kind of falls apart, but we're still here. Also, it's really important to ask for updates in real time. If you ask somebody about a project or a team or something that they were doing or that you were doing a month ago that you want feedback on, that's going to be really hard for them to, be able to provide anything useful to you, because by that point, it's already going to be all the way in the back of their memory, if it's even still there. So that one's not as relevant, but I feel like it's important. The real time getting updates as you go along is very important. And also posing very specific questions that sort of circle back to the kind of feedback you want and the kind of answers that you're looking for. The more specific you can be when asking these kind of questions, the more helpful the person who you're asking for feedback from can be to you. So it's very important that you take a moment before you ask someone for, feedback on your team, on you, on a project, whatever. The specific things you want to do better so that you can make sure you're having the conversation that you want to have. So all that being said, going back to the team building example, these are the questions that I came up with within literally 2 minutes of reading said Reddit post I referenced earlier. So obviously you can go as deep as you want into this, but I feel like these are just the basics that you should be expected to cover. What Pokemon did you bring to each game? I don't know. What Pokemon are you using on that team? I don't know. What Pokemon or moves or strategies did you lose to? What are we doing to make this better? Why isn't it the best already? Usually when someone asks you to make their team better, it's because they're losing in a specific scenario or specific situation. So knowing that information would be very helpful to proceed. Do you feel like you had the tools to play around those, Pokemon or moves or strategies that caused you trouble? There's a big difference, in my opinion, between, losses that are because of paralysis, because of flinches, because of crazy random happenstances that happen in Pokemon as a game, versus losses where you just don't have the Pokemon or you don't have the matchup that you need in order to do well. And being able to, like distinguish between those two different losses is really important when asking for feedback. Because if you always lose to somebody running a Raichu because it's the fastest Pokemon on the field and you don't have anything to stop it, that's really different than losing to a Raichu because it uses Nuzzle and next thing you know, you're paralyzed for the rest of the game. What do you like about this team? What's your favorite part about the team? What's your least favorite part about the team? Usually the stuff that we like versus the stuff that we don't like is a good indication of where there's room to make changes and, sort of evolve the team to fit the metagame a little bit better. And quite frankly, if you're running a team with Pincurchin on it because it's your favorite Pokemon in the whole wide world, and you receive feedback that's like, hey, don't run Pincurchin, that's not helpful feedback at all. Like, you had already decided that you were going down that road, and having people tell you that that's the wrong direction is not the kind of feedback that I would assume you're looking for when asking on how to make your Pincurchin team better. So that's always really important to keep in mind as well. And the last question that I have, and this is a little bit kind of an interesting one to consider, is are there any moves or Pokemon that you feel are ineffective or that you're not using? And this also, I asked this in this way to sort of get a feel for how you hypothetically like to play Pokemon as a game. For example, if you're someone who's running, both Whimsicott and a Trick Room user on a team, but you find yourself favoring Tailwind over Trick Room, maybe that's an indication that you don't need a Trick Room user on your team to be anti-Trick Room. Maybe we can put something else in that slot, because you as a person prefer to beat Trick Room teams with a Tailwind user and maybe going for like crazy damage or a taunt or another way to disrupt that strategy over, using the Trick Room user on your team to reverse the speeds and play around it that way. So it's really important to sort of keep these things in mind when you're asking for feedback, but it's a lot of information that I just asked for. I rattled it off in like 3 minutes, but someone could sit down and write an essay for each of these questions. So that being said, how do you keep track of this information? It's a spreadsheet. Yeah, that was supposed to be an animated joke, but it didn't happen. This screenshot is an example of a spreadsheet I built when I built a Pincurchin team because I wanted to build a Pincurchin team. And as you can see, it has the Pokemon in there, it has their types, it has items, abilities, EVs, apparently a Nature of Error, which is a new one. I'll have to go back and fix that one. And it also has a link to the image with the team code on it, so someone could look at this and then download it in their game and play along. But more importantly, I actually have 2 tabs on the spreadsheet dedicated to winning notes and losing notes. The idea being that you track your wins in one spreadsheet and your losses in another. Now, each of these spreadsheets has spots for what I identified my win condition or loss condition as you'll see in a moment. Any surprises that happened. There was apparently a Dynamaxing Grimmsnarl at one point, which, yeah, I'm surprised about that now. The 6 Pokemon you see on your opponent's team in Team Preview, plus the 4 Pokemon that they bring, and the 1 Pokemon that they Dynamax. In this case, I think my colors were off because I usually like to use green for a lead, light blue for the back, and then like a accent color, which I'm assuming should have been the light blue to indicate Dynamax. You're welcome to use whatever system makes sense to you. You don't have to copy this verbatim. But I also keep track of the Pokemon that I brought in that game as well. So that's already answering a lot of those questions that we discussed earlier. Same thing for losses. As you can see here, there's no losses right now because I haven't been doing a good job building this team, but you can keep track of, why you lost the game or the losing condition, any surprises, the Pokemon, and then other notes. And last but not least, I also like to include a tab just to keep track of any teams that I find interesting throughout this process so that I can have inspiration when I go to build something completely different. And as you can see, the inspiration well has run dry, but that's a problem for me, not for you. So going back to the questions that we posed earlier, you now have a concrete spreadsheet that has the answers to what Pokemon you brought in each game, what Pokemon or moves or strategies you lost to, in addition to won to. That's also important. And you also have data that you can use to track, maybe I'm not using this Pokemon as often, or maybe, you know, there's moves or something that I don't like. You know, you have a mechanism to track that now. Unfortunately, you still have to provide feedback on sort of the more emotional aspects of this team, like how you felt about certain situations or matchups, or your favorite or least favorite part about the team. But by having the concrete data that tracking stuff like this in a spreadsheet provides, you'll be able to, you know, post a link to your spreadsheet, post a blurb about why you like the team, what you don't like about the team, and then someone can go in and actually help you. So I think it's really important that, you know, to keep track of this information for that reason. So the final thing I want to touch on really quickly is where you can get feedback and sort of what kind of feedback you can get from each source. Places for short conversations like Discord channels, Twitch streams, Twitter, where your friends are. Those are really great opportunities to ask someone, you know, I have this specific situation X, Y, and Z, and I want to be able to handle it better with my Pokemon Q. How do I do that? Or just really like anything that's like a really quick, specific question. Those are great places to have those conversations. If you want to get more like long form feedback, which is what I'm sort of targeting in this guide, such as how do I make this team better? I would recommend posting something on a forum like Reddit. The VGC subreddit is amazing. You know, there's also Smogon. I think Trainer Tower might still have a forum running. But just anywhere where you can actually have sort of a long conversation, that would be the best place to go for those kind of questions. But, you know what you're looking for best, and these are just some ideas to get you thinking about where you can go to ask those questions. But yeah, that's it for my video today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. And again, if you have any feedback on these kind of videos or any other guides or tutorials you'd like to see, please let me know. And that's it. So until next time, everybody, see ya. I can't find my mouse.